I encourage. Well, I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker, Kim Lebbing, president of Kimberly Lebbing LLC. Kim is a success and mindset coach with 10 years of experience in the coaching industry. Kim has a proven track record of getting massive results for business owners, entrepreneurs, and professionals who would like to overcome an obstacle or challenge that's holding them back from more productivity or higher level of success. She is an NLP master coach, and I'm sure you all know what an NLP is. Oh, that's a neuro-linguistic programming master coach, for those of you that did not know, including myself. Expert certification for over the last 8 years. Kim has created a unique 4-hour process that rapidly shifts minds to ignite the fire and motivation that will help you take massive action to reach highest goals without time-consuming seminars, training, and other programs. Please join me in welcoming Kim.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Hopefully my sound is working. We tested it a little while ago, and I see I need to move my chair up. So excuse me for a moment while I go up so you can see me clearly. And thank you for the introduction. I wanted to give a special shout out to Tom for, talk about breaking through barriers. Here we have the barrier of me being in quarantine, finishing up, but it is what it is. And thankfully we have this wonderful tool called Zoom that he could zoom me in. And a shout out to Kim Ellis for introducing me to Tom. And also I got a text just a few minutes ago from Dave Peterson and John Hawkins. Hi, glad to see you there. So anyway, next week I'll be out and about again and hopefully be able to attend some of your events. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. All right. So who here is excited to have more success in 2022? Who's excited about identifying obstacles so that you can break through to higher levels of success?
Yeah.
All right, I'm imagining I can see your hands high up right now. Okay, so a little bit about my backstory. I know he went through in my introduction, my background, but I want to tell you my backstory because I feel like it's important to know that when you're working with people or even listening to people and where they're coming from. I grew up on a farm in southern Missouri. I had very young parents. They didn't know what they didn't know. They were teens, honestly. And there was a lot of dysfunction going on and a lot of verbal abuse. I was talked down to a lot. So that is happened during my imprint years. And so it was programmed here. And as a result, I struggled with relationships. I was really stuck in my life, in my businesses. I've had a few businesses through the years, but I always had a problem with getting to the next level. Confidence in leadership was a problem, procrastination, consistency, fear of reaching higher levels in my business. And it wasn't until I learned this process of neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, that I really learned how the subconscious mind works. And I was able to break through a lot of those barriers that I struggled with. And when you deal with them at a subconscious level, you can get to the core and fix it right away. So that's what I want to share with you today. Okay, so what we're going to cover how to identify outward problems. We're going to talk about the myth that your personal life and your business life are separate. And then we're going to identify obstacles so you can accelerate your success and rise to the top of whatever that is for you. But first, we're going to go through a little bit of subconscious mind 101 because it's important for you to know this, how your brain really works, because this is going to help you get to the core of the problem and it's going to help you recognize behavior. So we have an estimated at least 50,000 thoughts per day coming into our brains. Out of that, they go through this filter. The filter is your attitudes, your memories, your values, your beliefs, language. And these are programs that are installed from the moment you're born. Most of them are installed at a very young age. And whenever that filter is in place, so all these things go through the filter, and out of that, we delete, we distort, and generalize information. When we delete, distort, and generalize information, this is when we respond to things maybe not in the best way, or maybe we're offended by things that we shouldn't be offended by. And it all has to do with what's in that filter. And out of that is where we make our decisions, and ultimately our behavior comes. And I just realized I didn't set my timer. So let me do that. Okay. All right. So now I want to talk about outward problems. Outward problems are typically not the real problem. And what do I mean by that? So when I talk to business owners or even their teams or, entrepreneurs, they will come to me with a problem. And I'm sure everybody's got some kind of problem in their business. Maybe it's consistency. Maybe it's procrastination. Maybe it's fear of success. These are problems, or maybe I'm not reaching the numbers that I want to reach in my business. And I don't know why, and I don't know how to fix it. These are problems, but they're not the real reason. They're not the core problem. It goes back to that filter. We have to get to the core problem. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Last week, I was working with a sales team that worked for a roofing company. Ironically, one of the salesmen, you might laugh at this, I'm not sure, but he had a fear of heights, and he thought that was his problem. And I'm sure that having a fear of heights as a roofer is a problem. However, when we drilled down to really get to what the real problem was, that is a problem, having a fear of heights, but it wasn't the core. It ended up being, he had a fear of being humiliated in front of other people. And what that boiled down to was that's a core emotion of shame. And that's in that filter. So something happened a long time ago with him that caused that filter, so that now he's afraid even to go up on a roof. So it had to do with humiliation rather than the fear of the roof. So I hope that makes sense. Another business owner example, a woman that I worked with that was a virtual assistant. She wanted to scale her business, and her problem, she had been wanting to do it for 3 or 4 years. And when I went to scale, I mean, some people don't know that word. I mean that she wanted to hire more employees. She wanted to train other people, other VAs. She wanted to really expand her business, but she wasn't able to. And her problem, what she thought, was that she had a fear of success. What the problem ended up being was that she had a fear. She had a fear or trust. I'm sorry. She had a trust issue. So the way we discovered that is I asked her, and this is the important part for you to know. So whatever your problem is, you'll want to ask yourself, how is that a problem? And by asking yourself, how is that a problem, you will drill down and you will get into something deeper, and you can keep asking it. So if it's still something surface level-ish, then ask it again. How is that a problem? Then you can get down to what the real problem is. Okay, so next let's talk about your personal life and your business life, because this is a clue as to where problems may start or even what problems we might have. Your personal life and business life can be separate physically. You may drive to a brick and mortar building. You have a separate bank account, you have a separate phone line, separate emails, maybe you have set hours, like all these things are separate. Emotionally, they are not separate. Emotionally, going back to that filter that I showed you in the very beginning, everything, every decision, every behavior, everything that you're doing is going through that filter. And that filter is based on personal life mostly. And that is what's driving your behavior and your decisions. So some more examples here with how these can't be separate. If you've known anyone or you yourself have been through a divorce, that a lot of times does affect your business. It affects your performance. I worked with a business owner. He had 3 businesses and he went through a really challenging divorce, and it put his businesses not at a standstill, but it was definitely affecting his ability to get referrals and bring new people in. And once he was able to figure out what the core problems were in his personal life and his relationships and resolve those, then his business picked up. So one affects the other, and there's really no way of separating it. So this is one of my favorite quotes, and that is, you can't change the fruit without changing the root, by Stephen Covey. And going back to these core problems. So really drilling down what the real problem is, because when you can pull that problem out by the root and really resolve it, that is when you see change. So it's January, right? We're all talking about goals, and this is, I'm not sure if it's, I think it's about the 3rd week of the month. This is the week when the gyms start opening up and going back to normal, right? Like we've all seen it. Maybe we've done it. I've certainly done it myself. And this is where people set goals, and maybe business goals too, but then they end up sliding back into old behavior. The reason they do this is because they haven't dealt with that root problem. They haven't figured out why they do the behavior they do and what that filter is. That filter is the thing that has to be dealt with, and it has to be rewired, changed. And that is why people fall off from doing goals. And just using the gym example, I know I grew up, my mom used to say she was allergic to exercise. I hated exercising. It's still not my favorite, but I do it. But I hated it for years. I wouldn't even do it. And I know that that is a program that I got from my mom. On the flip side of that, we also get good filters from our parents. So if we blame them for the bad, we also want to blame them for the good. I know that my entrepreneurial spirit came from my parents. My dad was a farmer. My mom had all kinds of businesses that she did from home while she was raising us. So I know if you're going to blame them for the bad, you got to also give them credit for the good. Okay, so now I want to give you some clues about how to identify these root problems and where they may have started from. So in your subconscious mind, where this filter is, 0 to 7 years is your imprint years. So that's where your core emotions are usually found. These core emotions, and I'm going to go through more of that in a moment, of anger, sadness, fear, guilt, shame, those are all set in there in 0 to 7. And every emotion or everything that we do is set during that time. Sometimes it's a traumatic thing and really obvious. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not obvious at all. And an example, I worked with a weight loss coach who had, she had lost I don't know if I remember the amount, but it was definitely over 60 pounds, maybe 90, I'm not sure. But she was wanting to help other people with weight loss and be a coach, but she hadn't changed the programming that was up here. So what was happening was she was inconsistent, and then she was she was sabotaging her results. Well, what we found out was that when she was about 6 years old, it started where her mom and her aunt would take her out to celebrate when she got good grades or anything good happening. And they would go out and have like fun food, ice cream, corn dogs, like she named off a lot of fair kind of food. But anyway, she made the association in her brain, and this was the filter, that fun and food, that you couldn't have fun if it was a healthy food. So this was a huge problem for her with her business and what she was trying to do, because she didn't even know that it was happening. And then there was this vicious cycle happening that every time she would get to reach a goal, she would sabotage it. And it was because what was in her conscious mind, what she wanted, didn't match up with what was in her subconscious, which was the filters. So once she became aware of where it started, and she knew the exact event, the exact time of where it first started, then she was able to change it. So when you get to the root cause, it can really help shift things, and shift them very quickly. Most of the time we walk around in life, we don't realize why we're doing behavior that we're doing. And we just kind of ignore it, or kind of just push it to the side and think, oh, I'll deal with that later. Or maybe I'll read a book and this will fix it, or I'll buy this program and it'll fix it. But really what we need to be dealing with is that core reason of why we're doing that behavior that we're doing. Ages 7 to 14 is the modeling years. So if you think about what problems you might be experiencing in your business, what barriers that are there, think about where you were and who was a model for you around that time. So if it's procrastination, I pick on parents a lot because that's who were around a lot during those years. But was there any person of influence in your life that maybe modeled that for you and you picked it up? So being aware of those things is really important. And then socialization. So I think about relationships with this part. My parents divorced when I was right at 14. And I know that that's one of the reasons why I struggled with relationships for so long. And I've been happily married for almost 25 years now. So just know that when you get to the core, that can make all the difference. Okay, so the emotions, the emotions I mentioned of anger, sadness, fear, guilt, shame, hurt, those are all stored in a part of our brain called the gestalt. And whenever so the reason why this process works so well is whenever you get to that cause, the thing that made that emotion happen, that's connected to that behavior that you have, that is what helps change everything. It works like a domino effect. So that you don't have to keep dealing with the same behaviors. You don't have to read a book to implement, a new, being more consistent. Because at that point, when you've really dealt with the deeper emotions behind things, you're bringing the subconscious up to the conscious level. And when you're aware of a problem, you can fix it. Okay, so I'm going to quickly talk about how to reframe the problem or fix it. So let's assume that you've identified what it is, you've gotten to the real problem, and you're a little more aware, at least aware of where it might have started. Now you can reframe it. And when I say reframe it, it's very simple. Ask yourself this question. Ask yourself how, what did I learn from this? How can I take this situation that happened, and how can I apply it to my life in a positive way? So what you learn from it is huge. And when you're doing that and you're dealing with the subconscious emotions, it'll affect the conscious behavior. I hope that made sense. And whenever you're able to, so when you're dealing with the emotions and you're dealing with reframing the problem, like we have this box around us of these problems that we're dealing with in our businesses, these behaviors that maybe we're not doing or we wish we did. And whenever we're able to deal with it at a core, it's literally like a cardboard box. Like this girl could take this box and probably tear it right open once those problems are resolved. And then able to do that, you can see opportunities that maybe were there the whole time that you didn't see before. You can see, you are more open to the things that are already there around you because you've changed the filters. You rewired the brain, you rewired the subconscious so that those things are no longer problems for you. And a little bit more into this, I've got an analogy I like to even use with clients is that whenever, if you can imagine that filter being a pair of glasses that everybody's born with, and every time something happens, whether it be that's emotional, you get a splotch. So we're walking around with these filters, these eyeglasses, and every time, a fear happens, even if it's little, even if it's a mom, crying out to a child and not run out into the street. Well, there's a fear splotch. Like there's things that happen even with the best intentions that end up splotching up the glasses. And as we're looking through and we're making decisions, we're seeing it through these really cruddy glasses, quite honestly. And whenever we can work with the core emotions and we can bring what's subconscious up to the conscious level and really get at it at its core, then we can see clearly. We see clearly. We see the opportunities. We're able to rise to the top. We're able to break through the barriers, the goals, and all those things. So that's it. And I just hit my timer, just went off. I couldn't have timed that more perfectly. I put my contact info up here. If I were there in person, I was gonna, of course, I think we're gonna open it up for questions, but sometimes people have more personal things that they want to ask. So I wanted to put my contact info up here. If you wanted to contact me, you can find me. You can text me, call me, email me, whatever it is.
Kim, I just got about 10 things I'd like to go over with you, if you don't mind. No, thank you, Kim. I appreciate that. Who does have some questions for her? We got a few minutes for some questions. If you have a question, yeah, come on up so she can hear you through the computer. What's that?
Is the couch lay down?
Yeah, just come up and lay down on the floor here. Anybody? Well, I guess, Kim, we don't have any questions for you today, but we sure appreciate you being here with us today.
One question I do have.
Oh, Tom does have a question.
Well, when you address the question of how is that a problem?
Yes.
And you said, how do you know when you've reached the depth of that answer? Because, like a lot of times I think we can trick ourselves into thinking that's where it is. Because that's what I deal with.
So I would keep going. keep going. And if you find yourself repeating yourself in what I would call looping, you've probably gotten there. But you will know also if you start to kind of go up to back to surface level things. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think so. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Last chance. Anybody else? Kim, if you were here in person, we would have a little present for you for speaking with us today, but we will get that to you the next time we see you, okay?
Thank you, Kim. I'm going to stop the recording. I'll keep you on.
Okay.